And this vivid dream is about a house that will no longer be on the market for sale up to this day. Because some people say that the house is haunted, some people classify it as dreams. But this one account, Charles, I want to tell you exactly all about what happened to his son in this house. So if you guys are into these type of stories, please smash the notification bell as I am new to this, and subscribe to my channel because it really helps my channel. Alright y'all, let's get into this vivid dream. Charles was this big outdoorsman. He was a working hard type person. He always went to work on time, was very bad at book, and always throughout the course of his day did everything out of book. But he always loved it, getting off work, enjoying wilderness, cooking out, drinking beer, and just having a really good time with his son, Michael. But unfortunately, in this story, things would take a turn to the worst because Charles decides that after a while, he kind of got used to his area he was in, so he decided to move, and he finally got his career where he wanted it to be. So he said, I think it's time to do like more of a family thing, and he went out and met a woman, and he would start dating, and Margaret and him would go to get married, and then they would buy this home that's up in Ohio, in a nice wilderness, sitting up near mountains, and there's good trees around, and good illumination from the moonlight coming into the house. So it was everything he imagined, plus more. When Charles went out to look for this house in Ohio, he found this house, and he was like, it's really huge, has several rooms and a couple bathrooms, has a nice kitchen and everything. But the thing was, it always struck him weird, like, why is it so cheap? But overall, his wife said, well, you know what? If we ain't got to put much money into the house, then we can put more money into the house. So let's buy this house and let's just fix it up. I mean, we can use all the rest of the money to fix it up because we got this house at such a good discount. And Charles, after a while, he's like, you know what? I do like the wilderness and stuff, so I guess this would work. So he went on ahead and just went through with the purchase, even though he still had his little signs of doubts. It's like, if this house is on the market and it's this big and it's still, why isn't anyone else buying it? So he'll move, and then they get settled in, and he gets his little job and stuff transferred out there, and pretty much they, start living that normal life and stuff. But Michael, which is Charles' son, will always come in his parents' room in the middle of the night and lay in the bed with them and try to go to sleep. And then his father would say, no, you got to go back to your room. It's just a new house. You got to hear. He's talking about hearing things. And he's like, it's just new cracks and stuff. You got to get used to the sounds of a new house. And predominantly his father will put him back in the bed, and then he'll respectfully go back to his room, lay beside his wife Margaret, and them two would go to fast asleep. Through the night, they would hear a loud screaming noise coming from the son's room. And he would pop up, and he would run over to the room, and he would open the door, look in there, and his son was sound asleep. So he kind of had that feeling like something's wrong, but I don't know. Maybe I'm hearing things, I'm tired. It's the middle of the night. My son was already complaining about he hearing noises and things that's weird, and he can't sleep. So maybe I'm just overloaded. So he just went back to the room and taxed it off as, maybe he thought he heard something and went back to sleep. The next day, when they go downstairs and Charles and Margaret is making breakfast, their son, Michael, will come downstairs and he'll say, Dad, did you see all that last night? And his father would turn and say, what? He's like, it was a loud scratching and screeching noise coming from underneath my bed, and I just couldn't tell what it was, so I just balled up in the sheet. And his father said, well, you go in there. When I went in the room and checked on you, you were fast asleep, and it seemed like you was perfectly fine. He said, I did hear some type of noise, but it didn't sound no screeching sound or anything. And the son said, Dad, I'm scared of my room. There's something wrong. And he says, well, let's just give it a few days and let's see how it is. And, he did the typical, let me talk some comfort into him. And he did. He talked some comfort into his son. His son kind of understood. And he's like, okay, well, you know what, Dad? And that's fine. And they went on out the day. Later that night, he would get up, walk into his hallway, go into his son's room, just to randomly check on him. And everything was fine. But when he's walking back and he turns around and closes his son's door, and he's walking back up the hallway toward his room, he will hear the loudest yelling noise come from his son's room that he had just left from. So he turned around, he darted back towards his son's room. He would open his son's room door, and right as he opened his son's room door, he'd see his son is already sitting up out of the bed, and he's just balled up, and he's sitting there, and he's looking. And his son is looking like, Dad, there's something in this house. He said he heard a screeching sound, and there was some type of monster that came from under his bed. He really couldn't tell what kind of monster it was, or if it was even some type of certain kind of monster, because I don't think monsters come with a certain kind. So his father's kind of looking at him, but mind you, he's young, and his father's all confused, but he could tell his son definitely something happened, because his son is pouring his sweat, and he's frantic looking. He's shocked, like he's seen something. But he was sitting in the room with his son and said, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay here with you, and I'm going to let you go back to sleep, and I'm just going to sit here, and I'm going to monitor you. Now, when he sat there, he said his son will go back to sleep, and as his son was sleeping, he would see his son shaking and screaming and yelling at the top of his lungs, and he said it just didn't seem right, so he pushed his son real hard and woke his son up, and his son would pop up and say, Dad, did you see it this round? It's under the bed. It's a monster that's under my bed. And he said, well, I didn't see anything, and you were asleep, and I've been sitting here the entire time. I never left your bedside. And that's when it dawned on him. Whatever it is, that noise that he heard the other night, he must have been asleep too. And whatever it is the son is seeing under his bed, it's happening in his son's sleep. So there's something about this house affiliated with sleep. But ultimately, the next day would go past, and he would finally get up and go to work and, really get out there now. He's in a grocery store and he meets a neighbor, and the guy says, I haven't seen you around here before. He says, yeah, well, I live in the house that's down such and such, and I'm just going to use a fake address because I don't want to disclose the actual location because I don't need nobody getting hurt or nothing like that. But let's just use 7905, okay? And he said, that house has been vacant for years. He said, how could you possibly live in that house? And then the father would say, what do you mean? He said, after all that's happened in that house, a whole entire family murdered in that house, and people say that the family still hunts people that lives there. And the father's just, he's trying to soak in all this information, and he's putting two and two together of what his son was saying and stuff, and what is going on. He said, so is it like somebody that's actually in that house? He said, I've never had no problems. Of course, he's trying to cover his tracks, and he says he never had no problems out of the house stuff. But in his mind, he is like, oh my God, when I get to that house, we are gone. And he did. When he got to that house, he would pack his family up and say, we're out of here. And meanwhile, when he left, a couple paranormal people and investigators will talk to the son and stuff and try to get a good sketch of how this guy looks. But when he asked the father to give him the sketch, to ask his son to sketch how this thing looks that he's seeing in his sleep, it shocked the father because the detective said, good, I need to compare this with the other pictures. And then the father looked at the son looked at the father, and he's like, looked at the detective and said, what other pictures? And he said, this has been going on for years. This house has been sold over and over and over. And each time it's always the children's room. A monster's under the bed, and people started going crazy. And one time this person said he seen somebody through a window, and it's just a lot of weird things been occurring with this house. And honestly, the house was supposed to have been off the market, but they sold it to you, and now you're telling me that you're going through the same situation in your son. So I just want to get a good picture of him. And when the son drew this sketch, it fell right in line with all the rest of the sketches. Here's a sketch of what Charles believed his son has been seen under the bed. That's going to do it, guys. So if you are into these vivid dreams, y'all, please smash the like and notification bell. Please drop the comment as to what you think is really going on behind the closed door of this house. And please make sure you turn the notification bell on so you don't miss any of my 3 to 4 weekly uploads. And if you are one of those binge watching type people, every Sunday I will put it together, all the shows I posted throughout the week, and post them. That's gonna do it. See y'all.